I forgot to put my earrings back in. Do not wear white earrings, children, or adults, when you have a face full of makeup. The Barbie movie. I'm partially disappointed. Very disappointed, actually. And I promised you, it's not the reasons you think. Hi, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Belle, and as you can see, right there, and bag over there, and right here, and many more on this exact channel, I am a massive Barbie fan. I have been since childhood, and I had a couple attempts of trying to get out of it when I was like a preteen. One time when I was a teenager, 17. That was 5 years ago. Other than that, I've been basically a Barbie fan since I was 2. And I am 22. 20 years. When I say that I'm a Barbie fan, I mean literally. I have a Barbie bag that I'm currently working on fixing from one of the Barbie movies. I have a Barbie weekly calendar journal. I have a Barbie adult coloring book. I've got another Barbie adult coloring book. I've got a Barbie Fairytopia poster that I have done a video on about a year ago, so check that out if you're interested. Barbie dolls up here. I've got Barbie movie posters. A huge collection of Barbie DVDs right over here. I've got Barbie books. Oh yeah, and I also have a my size Barbie and the Nutcracker Clara doll. Do you guys have
petty?
I am a full-on Barbie fan in every definition of the word. Most certainly can overtop a lot of Barbie fans. I'm talking about the pop culture phenomenon of Barbie. It seems to be a trend at the moment to like Barbie because of the Barbie movie. I have had a lot of mixed feelings when it came to this movie, particularly the culture that surrounds it, because when the first teaser trailer was officially announced, a lot of people were kind of like, this is going to be terrible, it's a Barbie movie. But then once the full trailer came out and the press tour started happening with Margot Robbie.
Humans are just so weird. They made a doll and then they got mad at the doll. Yeah. We're not going, oh, here's the things that we should do better in the world. We're kind of like, you're doing this wrong and you're doing this wrong and you're doing this wrong. True. It's a doll. It's a plastic doll and we made it. But it's not our fault. It's the doll's fault.
Right. Being a spokesperson for the whole entire movie, everybody suddenly was in love with it. Everybody is suddenly buying all the collaborations whenever it's with Loungefly, Grilled, all the fast fashion brands. Oh boy. And I'm just sitting here like, okay. I am very conflicted. Because on one hand, I want to enjoy the fact that Barbie is having a lot of limelight and people are actually enjoying it. But on the other hand, I can't help but cringe, and I hate that word. It's not really genuine. It's like people who go onto fast fashion brands, buy the most popular thing because the Kardashians have worn it, and then ditch it within a month or two. Unethical. And with that in mind, I'm nowhere near implying that you have to be an expert on Barbie's history, have to enjoy the Barbie movies, or collect the dolls in order to enjoy the Barbie movie. In the end of the day, the Barbie movie is on the same level as the Scooby-Doo live-action movies from the early 2000s. I would personally recommend checking out Modern Girl's take on the Kindercamp genre if you're not aware of what that is. You do not have to enjoy the source material where it came from in order to enjoy it as a standalone movie, especially considering its satire based on the critiques of Barbie throughout the years. So there's no continuity errors whatsoever with this movie. It's not connected to the animated movies, including the obscure ones from the 80s.
I know we can do anything if we just set our minds to it!
It's not canon to any previous lore from whatever Barbie era. It's not canon to the Barbie vlogs on YouTube, Barbie Life in the Dream House, or Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures. It is its own entity, and you do not have to be an expert. However, I have noticed a huge inflection of people who are suddenly trying to jam their way in to saying that they're obsessed with Barbie. The Barbie movie is their whole entire personality, and heavily consuming all of the new current Barbie collaborations and products because it is a trend. It's on the exact same level as how Bratz was really popular due to the Y2K aesthetic coming back into trend. There's a lot of people who genuinely are not fans of their childhood nostalgia and or their need to follow trends in order to be hip and cool. For example, if you're using screenshots or photo stills from the older Barbie movies and using them as an aesthetic, not clarifying that you do not like the movies as an adult, and then you have someone coming into your DMs getting excited about it, thinking you are a fan, it creates a false narrative, even if it's not your intention to do so. I have actually been up to date with the Barbie movie since around 2015. That's a long time. Oh, well that's a lot clearer. Back then, it was basically obscure to come across any articles whatsoever referring to the Barbie movie. Every 6 months, I would search it up, try to see if there's any updates. So initially, it was Amy Schumer who set out to play the role of Barbie. The concept was that Barbie got kicked out of Barbie Land for being imperfect, for not being the stereotypical Barbie. About 2017, Amy Schumer drops out of the role because supposedly articles are coming out now saying that she didn't feel like the movie was feminist enough. Spoiler alert, just know that I'm annoyed by that. Anne Hathaway was considered to be in the leading role. She eventually dropped out in about 2018 because of scheduling conflicts. So the movie was on hold until Margot Robbie was in talks to play Barbie, and I thought that was the best thing yet. While I love Anne Hathaway, I'm personally not a fan of Amy Schumer. I feel like with the right script, both of them could work. Holiday Barbie 2011. The classical Barbie look with the blonde hair, the blue eyes, and she's got an incredible acting range to prove it as well. And well, in my opinion, I thought the cast was fantastic. I also believe that Ryan Gosling was the perfect Ken, especially for that himbo loving golden retriever boyfriend type of energy that Ken actually had in Barbie Life in the Dream House.
I'm never gonna have a real job.
The internet was in an uproar when it was announced that Ryan Gosling was playing Ken because apparently he's too old.
Can do anything, right, Barbie?
Peaches and Queen Barbie doll comes with change around stroll and everything you see here. Ken dolls sold separately.
The next time somebody turns around and says that Barbie is a harmful stereotype, particularly to young girls, it was the influence of the 80s and that culture defined Barbie to what she is known as today. The 80s was defined as the turning point of the century, down to technology becoming more advanced, or even down to the fashions, the big hair, the accentuated outfits, the pink. Pink is defined as Barbie's color in today's society. I believe there is actually a shade of pink that is named after Barbie. Up until that point, pink wasn't even really a primary color for Barbie, which is very oddly fascinating to me. Because in the mid-2010s, this is where we start to see a shift in Barbie's appearance that has stuck with her for 30 years straight. This is where we start to go into the anti-feminine, girly era. One thing that I will definitely give this movie huge credit for is the realization of how harmful there was a stereotype going around about being the anti-girly girl. If somebody was heavily interested in pink or dressing up, and it was popular to outright shame that girl and essentially slut shame her, all due to her appearance. It didn't matter what her morals are or whatever or not she was sleeping around with anybody.
Oh yeah, the one about my boobs being fake. That is just ridiculous. Come on. I'm 18.
Much like any other decade and about any single thing in the world, we mostly have a different mindset on it today. But it's very peculiar to see just how harmful that impact was on a lot of girls' self-esteem. But today, heavily due to the Barbie movie's marketing strategy, it's socially acceptable to be feminine.
We just have to go to the toy store. Really, darling, why? Barbie Dollar Days. You can trade in any doll and save $1 right there. No. On any Barbie doll. You mean $1 off? Peaches and cream?
When I was a preteen entering my teenage years, I was outright terrified of being labeled as a slut. Since day one of my existence, I have always been incredibly girly. Expressing my girlhood and eventually my womanhood is just who I am. It's always been a part of me. Obviously there are some exceptions, but that's because I genuinely liked it and it had nothing to do with gender. From about 13 years old, when I entered high school, until I was about to turn 17, I was not presenting myself with who I knew I was because I was afraid of what adults would think about me behind my back, compared to the way that they would gossip about their own daughters and completely bash on them in private when I'm just an year away. And there was no sympathy in that Hex, the formality of not like other girls, was heavily formed during this time. I can flex my Barbie facts for days.
Barbie, the famous teenage fashion model doll by Mattel, felt that this was to be a special night. And then it happened.
Considering that this movie was obviously heavily inspired by the 90s version of Barbie, the aesthetics, the color palette, Ryan Gosling actually has the perfect face for Ken of that era. I think Ryan Gosling has a close enough resemblance to the face mold of that time. I've had many Kens. Many Kens. I had two that I still have that look more like Ryan Gosling than the actual Ryan Gosling Barbie movie doll. Just saying, Mattel, you could have used that face mold. Comedic timing, perfect. Margot Robbie's comedic timing, perfect. I love the physical humor. No qualms about the acting whatsoever. My problem is the inconsistency of the script and the messaging. The first 5 minutes of the Barbie movie introduces everything in a very good pacing, being the representation for little girls of being independent. In 1959, Barbie was the first female, doll or otherwise, to ever have a credit card in her name. She was meant to represent that for little girls, that you can dream and be anything. It's also Barbie's current slogan. However, my problems start to arise when it comes to the treatment of the Kens, particularly with Ryan Gosling's Ken from Margot Robbie's Barbie. I did not like that whatsoever. Ken was actually created in the early 1960s as a resort of little girls asking Ruth Handler and Mattel to give Barbie a boyfriend, which is interesting to me, considering that this was not discussed in the movie. I really thought that in regards to Ken's identity, they were going to explore what it meant for Ken, and for Ken to find out that there is a considerably small portion of people out there who do appreciate him and love him just as much as Barbie, and that was meant to be his come to Jesus, come to Barbie, come to Mattel moment. That was not the case. Ken was actually Barbie's first ever canonical friend. Up until that point, only Barbies were ever actually made. Brunette and blonde. Ken was Barbie's first friend, and he was also the resort of little girls asking Ruth Handler and Mattel to make her a boyfriend. Little girls asked that. The target demographic asked for Ken to be made to be Barbie's boyfriend. I feel like that could have been a point of contention in the movie and maybe even be mentioned. Another thing in regards to Ken is the rivalry between Ryan Gosling's Ken and all the other Kens. Now, if you are not aware of Barbie and Ken's relationship in the early 2000s, let me tell you. In 2005, it was announced that Mattel was going to break up Barbie and Ken, and they were going their separate ways. Which is very interesting because when you look at the Barbie animated movies, up until Fairytopia, Ken was heavily featured in the Barbie lines. The only line to not include a Ken doll up to that point was Fairytopia. At the time when I was a child, I thought that the mermaid Prince Nalu was meant to represent Ken. 2005's Barbie Fairytopia was about Barbie playing a wingless fairy named Alina, the sister of the Enchantress who wanted to take over the realm. Barbie Alina is the only one who was able to defeat Laverna, and along the way, there is a particular scene where she comes across Prince Nalu, who is very clearly meant to be Ken, and they very obviously had a underlying romantic undertone. Barbie gets her wings in the end, and everything is all good and safe until the sequels arrive. Up until that point, Barbie Fairytopia was the only Barbie line from the movies to not feature Ken as any of the characters, much less the love interest. And from that point onwards, Ken was not actually featured as a Barbie character. It was just a male doll. None of it was presented as Ken. I'm currently looking at Mike's Wild Lake Prince Daniel, and on the corner of his box, he has Ken as Prince Daniel. If you look at the older Barbie dolls from the Barbie movies, you would also see that on Nutcracker, it says Ken as the Nutcracker / Prince Eric, and so on and so forth. From that point onwards in 2005, Prince Aiden, who was from Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus, that came out the exact same year as Fairytopia, no longer has the word Ken written on the box. And this was also heavily featured on the Barbie and Teresa boxes as well from the movies, or the Kellys and the Tommies. From this point onwards, no names were ever mentioned again, and Ken was soon no longer to be seen from the Barbie universe. Around that same time, the Kelly Girls line was released, where we were introduced to Blaine, He was also heavily featured in the My Scene movies as well, along with Barbie. He was essentially meant to be a replacement for Ken as a love interest for Barbie. And all the way up until 2009, Mattel had announced a poll of some sort, asking if they would want Barbie to pursue a relationship with Blaine or with Ken. Majority had voted for Ken, and in 2010, Barbie and Ken got back together, with Mattel releasing a Ken doll that she said yes. I remember seeing in stores, and I honestly thought it was a proposal. I was very confused because I was a young child. I had no idea that Prince Antonio from Island Princess and the twins from Diamond Castle were technically not Ken. Actually, it was never quite clear if they were meant to be Ken or if it was meant to be a stand-in. Regardless, it's very interesting how a lot of the male love interests don't really get the typical portrayal as the early Barbie movies did, where Barbie and the male got together, like Rapunzel, where they had an on-screen kiss and they also got married. So I feel like the rivalry between Ken and Ken would have made more sense if it was Ken and Blaine, so it could have been a throwback. Because personally for me, it doesn't make any sense. With mentioning Pregnant Midge and mentioning Alan, buddy of Ken, or Earring Match Ken, it is technically considered obscure media, unless you're looking at Mojo.com. Tend to exaggerate the truth a little bit. A real child named Ryan. If she was promoting teen pregnancy, that means she was like 12 when she had Ryan. I feel like if they're going to go out of their way to do that sort of research, then why couldn't you have done a little bit more? Really get into the Barbie lore. The adults that are in the crowd who are only simply there for the pop culture Barbie and not any of the Barbie media, who has no idea about any of this stuff, either fly over their heads and they can completely not get it. They don't understand the joke. Or, if you're going to mention Skipper, what about mentioning the countless of discontinued Barbie sisters? Baby Chrissy was discontinued because people was mistaking it as Barbie's baby. Name change from Kelly to Chelsea. I am still very confused about that. Is it the same thing as Alan and Alan, where it's hard to distinguish if they're the same character with a name change? Or are they meant to be two separate characters? It was also never mentioned why Kelly was changed to Chelsea. Supposedly the rumor is that Mattel changed it in 2010 because Kelly was actually not as popular as Chelsea at the time.
Kelly, right? It's Chelsea.
Interesting. Barbie also had a set of twin sisters. And Tommy was actually meant to be Ken's brother.
She's every girl's best friend. It's Barbie, starring in her first feature-length motion picture.
Barbie tends to have belittled the men, particularly Ken, to the point where he had an identity crisis. We're meant to be equal to men, and not demean them to the level that women were once put across it, because by going by that ideology, history is just repeating itself. Another problem that I have with this movie is particularly Barbie's ending. I feel like it could have gone one of two ways. The point of contention that I really have with the ending of this Barbie movie is that little girls, and boys who also loved Barbie as well, grew up idolizing Barbie because she can be anything, while never worrying about what other people think of her, never degrading herself to a level that she's not. And that's what made her powerful. So, taking away that image of her being a Barbie doll and her meaning something, but the connection between the human who owns her and the doll itself, and making her a real person, just, there's a disconnect with that. I do not like that they made her a real person in the end. I feel like it should have gone one of two ways. Personally, I'm not a fan of this idea in particular. However, it does continue the continuity that Mattel has been doing with the Barbie brand as of recent years. Barbie getting flat feet, Barbie having real emotions, Barbie being less materialistic in terms of her appearance, less extravagant and feminine, and less makeup, could turn Barbie into what she is today, where she is minimal makeup, she is flat-footed, she is wearing casual fashion. That can easily represent the change that they were talking about at the end of the movie. And that it's okay to change your interests and not necessarily represent image to what people associate you with. I am personally not a fan of modern Barbie. This would continue with the world building and it would explain a lot of it. And it flows a lot better with the message. Second idea, I personally prefer a lot better. Barbie accepting the knowledge that she's received from the human world and combining that into her reality while also not changing herself. she realizes that it's okay to be exactly who she was with the new knowledge, while continuing to inspire all the little girls for many generations to come. I don't know. That is my personal take. I do plan on seeing the Barbie movie again, hopefully, because I want to form a little bit more of a coherent opinion. Because I'm not entirely sure if I like the tonal shift, try to be multiple things at once. The first part of the movie is in Barbie Land, where it's just campy and fun. I mean, it represents what Barbie is in pop culture media. The middle half is Barbie going through the identity crisis while also having a fun time, where we introduce the character of Gloria and Sasha. That was a Bratz reference.
Look who's here. The fashion freaks. Yeah. Whatever. Whatever.
I turned to my mom and I was like,
Did you hear that? She called her Betty Boo.
and she's just like, now this was a critique that I actually heard from Nostalgia Critic's review after I watched the Barbie movie, because I was trying to figure out what it was exactly that I didn't fully like about it. He was explaining about how the movie should have focused more on Barbie's relationship with Gloria and Sasha. That really makes a lot of sense, because we have this narrative to believe coming into the movie, into the introduction, little girls playing with baby dolls, transferring to Barbie, and idolizing Barbie. This can show exactly what Barbie means to girls, but then the movie takes a complete dive into a completely different direction for the third part of the movie. At this point, Barbie is jumping through way too many things at once, and it feels so shallow. Having an identity crisis, trying to mend the relationship between herself, Gloria, and Sasha, running away from the Kens from taking over Barbie Land, for clumsily jumping from one story to the other, with a really clumsy payoff in the end of Barbie wanting to become human, and it feels sudden and forced. Ken was made a big disservice in this movie. They were trying to go for the idea of what we think when it comes to Barbie and Ken, the pop culture idea. But it all becomes clumsy and very forced when you realize that it does in fact have jobs in the Barbie universe. Had dolls where he's been a doctor, for an example. Ken is actually so much more than just Barbie's accessory. I don't know about you personally, but I used to get upset with my mom when she hardly ever bought me any Kens. When I was 5 years old, I got the Princess and the Pauper doll set. We were at a hotel, Annalise, Erica, the carriage. I remember looking at either the picture of the Ken doll in the box, because either I didn't have him, or I did have him, so I was looking at the doll, and the question popped into my head, and I asked my mom, why do you hardly ever buy me any Kens? And she just said that she just don't know. She doesn't. Was I the only kid who actually cared about having Ken dolls? The point is, Ken does have fans. They wouldn't have done a 60th anniversary of Ken just a few years ago if he didn't. Ken's presence within the Barbie movies and the Barbie franchise as a whole has always been very present. The difference is that he supports Barbie. This is her brand. It's not Barbie and Friends, it's just Barbie. Ken can be his own separate thing just as much as Mitch, Nikki, Grace, Christy, Teresa, Summer. Ken is his own separate entity. I remember, particularly with my Barbie movie dolls as a kid, I tried my hardest to give them the exact personality they had in the movies, unless I had them playing a different character, because they were dressed differently. That's the only time where they were off-brand. Giving them a personality mattered to me. And for the record, how come Margot Robbie's Barbie is the only one to have an established owner? We never hear about Ken's owner controlling him and his behavior, or anybody else's. Margot's Barbie is very inconsistent throughout the whole entire movie, and it's not necessarily about who she wants to be or what she wants to do. It's about her feelings in regards to it. It is very well established about Ken's insecurities right off the bat. I feel like Ruth Handler should have not been played by an actual actress. I love the actress who played her. Matilda, I was 14, I watched a couple of episodes of Cheers, and she was great in that. However, Ruth Handler was based on a real life person, and the movie is meant to have this aestheticity of what it's like, extension of Barbie, what it feels to be connected to Barbie. I feel like Ruth Handler should have been sort of like an aura, a spirit, an entity. For example, have a scene of Barbie going to Mattel, had people in that locked space, the Barbie is on the table, the Barbie heads being created, the dresses being designed, and have them be women. Express to Margot's Barbie about how much Barbie means to them and what it means to work for it. And then conveniently, the real Ruth Handler could be playing in the background, introducing Barbie and having interviews about it. I don't know, maybe I need to see this movie again. The fact that this movie really tries to not rely on CGI too much, the backgrounds are hand-painted, the sets are actually real, the dream houses are real structures, I will give huge points for that. Creativity in the Barbie land is a 10 out of 10. 12 out of 10, actually. Have such a good setup, and the beginning of it works so well. It's about commentary, political views in regards to women versus men. Personally, for me, I always saw Barbie as the older sister slash young auntie that I never had. I aspired to be like Barbie because of her kindness, her courage, her bravery, her creativity, and her mindset to do anything. Anyway, I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Have you seen the new movie? What's your opinions? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I would love to hear why. Let's keep this civil, and yeah. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, and if you like other Barbie content, please do consider subscribing because Bye.
I don't know how things will turn out, but one thing's for sure, it's gonna rock.